welcome to Car Babble, guys. I'm Ewan and this is the Skoda Octavia VRS IV, which is the plug-in hybrid version, or PHEV, FEF, whatever you want to call it, of the Octavia VRS. And in this video I'm going to tell you everything you need to know about it and whether as a private buyer this makes any sense at all. So buckle up and let's get into it. Now let's look under the bonnet of the Octavia. And the first thing you're going to notice is gas struts. Do you get that on a Volkswagen Golf? I don't think so. Good job, Skoda. No cutting corners there with the costs like it. But my favourite thing about this car, barring the Matrix LED headlights, we'll come back to that, is this little filler cap splashback arrangement for your water jets. Why don't all cars have that? That is what is great about Skoda. They think of little things like that, and I love it. So under the bonnet of this bad boy, you've got a 1.4 TSI petrol engine mated to an electric motor and a 13 kilowatt-hour battery producing up to 245 PS in hybrid sports mode and 400 Newton meters of torque. You can also get a petrol, which is front-wheel drive with manual or DSG, and that is similar PS and 370 Newton meters of torque. You can also get a front or all-wheel drive diesel with 400 Newton meters of torque and 200 PS, and they will all do, except for the front-wheel drive diesel, about 0-60 in about 6.8 seconds, which is pretty darn good, and 7.4 seconds for the diesel front-wheel drive. Unsurprisingly, space in the back seat of the Octavia is really good. If you're under 6 foot, you're gonna have no problems. I'm 5'9", my seat's in my driving position, I've got plenty of knee room. Headroom's decent. I think, again, if you're over 6 foot and you're leaning back, you might get that swooping headline starting to brush your head. But for a couple of kids, they're gonna be buzzing back here. This isn't a very wide car, so 3 people sitting beside each other long distance, maybe not. Middle seat's quite firm and a bit higher, but these outer seats are just as comfy as the front. They're so soft and squidgy and kind of bucketed, and yeah, they're great. You've got ISOFIX in the outer 2 seats, you've got connectivity here for USB-Cs, you've got air vents, you've got your usual pockets, you've got a little special pocket for your smartphone or something, you've got big door bins that are felt lined, the windows go down pretty far, the doors don't open that wide, that's one thing I would say. You also have a centre armrest, a couple of cup holders, although those are pretty rubbish cup holders, to be honest. I'm not quite sure how you're supposed to get a bottle in there, but yeah, you got them anyway. One thing that's an issue though is these seats have really wide shoulders, and so kids can't really see particularly well looking forward, and you can't really see that well looking back, which at times can be a bonus. As standard with the VRS, you get a kick sensor for the boot. Where the heck is it? Chances are, if you're buying a Skoda Octavia, that practicality is high up on your priorities list. Well, I'm glad to report that they haven't dropped the ball on that brief in this car. However, you do lose quite a lot of space because of the batteries for the IV. This is 450 litres and it's 600 in the petrol or diesel, and in the estate version it's 490 versus 640, so you're losing 25% of your boot because the batteries are under the floor. You also can store your cables under there, which is good. It is a wide opening, typical Skoda. You've got lots of little tie down points and everything, and you can put your seats down from here and they go pretty flat. It would have been nice to get 40-20-40 split folding rear seats though. I don't know why everybody doesn't do that in their cars. It just is a lot more practical. If you've got 2 kids and you go to IKEA and you've got like a door and you want to put it in the middle there, way better to just be able to put that whole middle seat down. So Skoda, that's not simply clever, but most things about this are otherwise. So we're inside the Octavia VRS, and I can say it is a very nice place to be. These seats are fantastic. They really punch above their weight. They look great. VRS gets these sports seats as standard. They are very comfy, very well bolstered. You get a sports steering wheel as standard, and it looks great. It feels quality. It's the right thickness, well damped buttons. Good job. Only thing is these scroll wheels are a bit cheap in feeling, and I feel like over time they could like get quite flimsy. But yeah, really great. Driving positions totally square on, not twisting my body at all. Everything's good in that front. You've got lots of cubbies. You've got massive door bins, which is just as well really, because the drinks holders in the middle are actually quite small. They're adaptive and they've got the little knobs on the bottom to help you twist off a cap with one hand, but they're just a bit small. So yeah, the protein shake, even though I don't actually drink protein shakes, does fit in the door, and it's felt lined as well, which I love, because if you've got keys or coins rattling around, you don't really notice any of that. Cubbies, yeah, central bit here, very big. You've got this ratcheting armrest that goes up and down and back and forth, and I like to be able to rest my elbows on things and put my hands on the wheel when I'm driving, and you can do that very well here, so they've really passed that brief. You've got a glasses holder up here, which, there you go, opens and shuts. And yeah, you've got a bit for your phone, which is wireless if you've got that as an option. Really good job. I really like this little shift-by-wire gear selector, which feels a bit cheap, but it's really dinky and just is quite nice to use. Yeah, I can't complain about any of that. Then there's the virtual cockpit, which is standard on the Octavia VRS. That's good. A lot of cars still don't even have virtual cockpits, and certainly not a standard, but it is really clear, customizable, love it. No complaints about that. You can control some stuff through your steering wheel. Again though, a little bit clunky. This though, this infotainment system, this is a massive fail in my opinion. It looks nice, it's customizable, yeah, but that's where it ends. To be honest, I'm really not happy with this infotainment system, enough so that it just about makes this car not one I would want to live with long term. Far too many times have I wanted to do something and it's just crapped out on me. The screen goes blank, it deletes your favorite settings, your climate settings. There's just too many button presses stabbing at this thing to get it to do what you want it to do. Yes, you've got these little, you know, shortcut keys below, which are quite useful, but they still direct you most of the time back to the infotainment system and more touchscreen inputs. And yeah, it's not that intuitive, and quite simply, far too glitchy. Volkswagen Group really need to sort this out, because this is a real chink in the armour of this car. I mean, who at Skoda thought to put a sliding volume thing here? What is that? Why, whatever happened to the good old-fashioned dial, you know? Like, it's just crap. But there are some really great things about this car. Matrix LED headlights being my favourite. So when you're driving at night on a country road and you can't be arsed flicking your high beams on and off, Skoda's got you covered. These smart beams will adapt their beams all around oncoming traffic, so you're driving in full beam all the time without having to worry about dipping your beams and dazzling oncoming traffic and having people flashing at you and sticking their fingers up at you and stuff. It's very reliable technology, and your visibility is amazing. Super job on that. Again, standard on the Octavia VRS. Really love that. You also get adaptive cruise control at standard and a suite of safety systems, including lane keep, which, yeah, you love it or you don't. I personally don't really feel the need to have that as a thing in my car, but all cars seem to have it now. My issue with it is I can't turn it off permanently. That really gets on my tits. I really want to just turn it off and forget about it, but nope. Every time I get in the car, I have to turn it off manually again, which is really annoying. But yeah, it's a really nice place to be. There's a few cheap looking bits of trim, but the build quality is decent. Things don't really move about much. I can't really complain too much about anything really other than that infotainment system. And yeah, I could spend a lot of time in this car and do a lot of miles. There's a few things on the options list that are maybe worth thinking about. Obviously, you got the head-up display, you got a sunroof or a pan roof if it's the estate. You could get an upgraded Canton sound system. Oh wait, no you can't because of the chip shortage. Yeah, you can't get that just now, so beware of that. But yeah, you can get all the usual sort of stuff, but it is very well equipped to standard. That virtual cockpit, big win. Adaptive cruise control standard, big win. You've got gear paddles as well. Great seats, great steering wheel, Matrix LED headlights. It really is well equipped and has all the things you could possibly want. So we're out on the road in the Skoda Octavia VRS IV, and the first thing I can tell you is it's pretty quick in a straight line. When you put it in a hybrid sports mode and you put your foot down, so I'm just going to do that now for you. That's sports mode, hybrid mode, fake engine noise. Can you hear that? And when you put your foot down in a straight line, yeah, it's pretty quick. Not 6.8 seconds, it feels as quick as that. So no issues with performance in a straight line. If you need to overtake somebody, you are going to have zero problems. But that's kind of where the sportiness ends. So if you were going to buy this car over the petrol or diesel, the reason you're going to do it is most likely because it's a company car, or because you're looking to save money on your fuel bill, and or because you want to save the environment, right? So you're not really looking for the sportiest possible experience, and yeah, I'm afraid to say it doesn't deliver that. If you really want that, the petrol one is the one to go for. You get a limited slip differential with that for starters. You don't get that in the diesel or in the plug-in hybrid. But the main issue here is you don't get lowered suspension on the IV compared to the petrol or diesel. So it isn't 15mm lower, and therefore, well, it doesn't look as sporty, but you notice that when you're cornering. They've had to set this up softer because of the extra weight of the batteries, and you definitely notice the difference when you take a corner really fast. Coming out to corner now, and really it does feel like there's a lot more weight in the front end of this car, and in general, and it's just not sporty at all round a corner. It handles competently. I don't feel like it's out of control in any way, but it definitely isn't as sporty a ride as the petrol will be. You're not going to get that limited slip differential kicking in and giving you that extra pull out of corners. It's got plenty of grip, but yeah, it's just quite a heavy, cumbersome car to turn quickly. Suspension wise, given that it's been more softly set up for the extra weight, it doesn't feel particularly hard when you go over a pothole or a bump. Imperfections are ironed out fairly well. Really got no complaints about that. Noise insulation's okay. Obviously, if you're driving in EV mode, yeah, it's going to feel really quiet. But out on the road, a little bit of noise from the tyres, a little bit of noise from the wing mirrors, but nothing to be too excited about. It really is pretty nice in here. Body roll is well controlled, steering is decent, don't have any complaints about that. It's not, you know, like massively feelsome, but it's really quite competent. I don't have any complaints about that, and it all feels the better because you're looking at this lovely sporty steering wheel that feels really nice to hold. The DSG 6-speed gearbox is really good. It's smooth, can't complain about that. And the transition between hybrid and EV is very good as well. The only way you really know you're actually doing it is when you look at your rev counter and you can see it kicking on when it goes into petrol mode. And that is really good. It's just totally seamless. And then there's the tyres. This came with Goodyear Eagle F1s as standard. And I'm sure they're a great tyre in summer, and I'll get to probably test it out fairly soon. But over a winter time in the northeast of Scotland, wet, slippery conditions, not great at all. I've also had 2 punctures as well, but yeah, they're 19-inch, so you know they're pretty narrow tyres. But the main issue is they're just really slippy, and because this is plug-in hybrid, you're coming off the line in EV mode virtually all the time, and you have to be very careful with the throttle. So if you're trying to nip out in front of traffic and you think, oh, I'll just quickly put my foot down and get out, you're getting left stranded. But the regen braking kind of bothers me. It's not really very smooth. You know, I get it. You know, every time you brake, it wants to put energy back into batteries, but it's very artificial feeling and not very confidence inspiring. So you're driving along and it's like, oh, I'm coming up to a car, I want to brake, and you touch the brake and it's like, just don't get a lot of feedback. You don't feel like it's really braking, and then all of a sudden you're like, getting a little bit close to my target here, better brake a lot harder, and all of a sudden it feels like you're doing an emergency stop. It's just not very smooth at all. So Skoda says you're going to get up to 38 miles per gallon of all electric driving range. Bullshit! You'll do well to get 25. Seriously. I've had it at 29 at one point, randomly, but the most really I ever get when I switch on is 25. And over the colder days and nights, 21, 22. So yeah, please somebody let me know in the comments if they've been able to get over 30. I would love to know how you did it. But that's plug-in hybrids for you. You know, you've got to really think about whether or not the fuel savings you're going to make suit your lifestyle. Are you doing a lot of town driving, short journeys? Can you charge it regularly? These are absolutely key things to get the returns in terms of fuel savings that you want to get out of this thing over a petrol or diesel. Don't get me wrong, they're there to be had, but you have to also consider that this car is quite a bit more expensive than the petrol. So this one is 37 grand thereabouts, and if you go for the DSG petrol, you're 3 grand less for that. The manual's even less. The diesel's about the same, about 34 grand in all-wheel drive form. So that there is quite a big disparity there in price. So you have to make back a significant amount of fuel savings over the time of ownership to actually justify that extra cost, in my opinion. Do a lot of miles in this car. I just think if I was going to do a lot of miles, I would probably pick the diesel, you know, because you're going to get the most overall fuel efficiency. You'll be getting 50 mpgs average easily in that, even with all-wheel drive. In this one, on a motorway journey, I did a test and I got 51 miles per gallon over 140 miles driving from full to empty battery in hybrid mode, which is pretty good, but it's still just diesel fuel economy. And then when I drove back, I didn't have any battery because I couldn't find anywhere to charge it, and I got 41 miles per gallon. So that's 20% less efficiency. That's quite a big difference. It's £2 to £3 to charge it at home, and if you were to do the same amount of miles as an EV charge on petrol only, or in hybrid mode, yeah, it's going to probably be about twice the price, give or take. So think about that over the cost of ownership. Can you make back that amount of savings over that period of time? Struggling to see it. So, final thoughts on the Octavia VRS IV. Well, if you really want the sportiest Octavia VRS, then it's pretty obvious. Get the petrol one. It's going to be the most fun to drive. It's going to feel like a genuine hot hatch. It's got a limited slip differential. You ain't getting that with this, but it is going to be the best to drive, and therefore it's the one to go for from a sporty point of view. Then there's the practicality side, which I think is a really big factor when you're buying any kind of Skoda, and you lose 25% in your boot because the batteries in this over the petrol or diesel, and that's quite significant. So all the compromises you need to make to have a plug-in hybrid, do they equate to being worth the extra £3 or so that you pay for this over the petrol DSG or the diesel? I can't really see it, because the fuel savings that I've seen over the time I've had it haven't been significant enough to think that I'm going to make that gap up over the time of ownership. So you really need to want a PHEV to go for this. Anyway, those are my thoughts. Love to know what yours are, so please do leave me a comment below. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.